Chapter International Trade. International Economics. M.A. Final, Economics, University of Karachi. Definition. International trade refers to the trade relations established among different countries through imports and exports on international accounts. Theories of international trade. There are, classically, two theories of international trade. 1. Theory of absolute advantage. 2. Theory of comparative advantage. Theory of absolute advantage. This theory was first coined by the Scottish economist Adam Smith in his book, The Wealth of Nations. Smith argued in his book that it is impossible for all the countries to become rich by following mercantilism, because the export of one country is the import of another country. However, if all the countries practiced free trade and specialized in accordance with the absolute advantage, they can be mutually benefited. According to Smith, wealth of nations depends on the goods and services available to their citizens rather than their gold reserves. According to this theory, absolute advantage is achieved when a producer, either a firm or country, produces a good or service more efficiently than its competitors. The only assumption in this theory is the use of only one factor of production, i.e., labor. In real life, no country, firm or even a person has an absolute advantage. Examples of theory of absolute advantage. According to above figure, Spain has the absolute advantage in food production over France, because in Spain a labor takes 1 hour to produce 4 units of food, while a French labor takes the same 1 hour to produce 2 units of food. Whereas France has an absolute advantage in cloth production, because in France a labor takes 1 hour to produce 4 units of cloth, while a Spanish labor takes the same 1 hour to produce 3 units of cloth. According to above figure, Spain has the absolute advantage in food production over France, because in Spain a labor can produce 1 unit of food in 0.25 hour, or 15 minutes, while a French labor can produce the same 1 unit of food in 0.50 hour, or 30 minutes. Whereas, France has an absolute advantage in cloth production over Spain, because in France a labor can produce 1 unit of cloth in 0.25 hour, or 15 minutes, while a Spanish labor can produce the same 1 unit of cloth in 0.33 hour, or 20 minutes. If the two countries specialize in producing the good for which they have the absolute advantage, and if they exchange part of the good with each other, both of the two countries can end up with more of each good than they would have in the absence of free trade. This further elaborated in the following figure. If Spain commits all of its labor 0.58 hour, or 35 minutes, for the food production in which it has absolute advantage, Spain can produce 2.32 units of food in 0.58 hour, or 35 minutes. In this scenario, Spain's two labors are now producing 8 units of food in total. On the other hand, if France commits all of its labor 0.75 hour, or 45 minutes, for the cloth production in which it has absolute advantage, France can produce 3 units of cloth in 0.75 hour, or 45 minutes. In this scenario, France's two labors producing 8 units of cloth. Thus, the total combined production, in this case, is 2.32 units of food and 3 units of cloth, which is greater than the total production in the previous case where there had been no specialization and free trade. Assumptions of theory of absolute advantage. One factor of production, i.e., labor, is considered. Labor is immobile between the two countries, but mobile within a country. Free trade, i.e., the trade between the two countries is free from all restrictions. Two-country and two-commodity framework for the analysis. Any trade between the two countries would take place only if each of the two countries had an absolutely lower cost in the production of one of the commodities. Theory of comparative advantage. David Ricardo agreed completely with the idea propounded by Adam Smith that international trade would mutually benefit both the countries, if one country has an absolute advantage over the other country in one line of production, and the other country has an absolute advantage over the first country in the other line of production. But Ricardo added a new idea and argued that a country, having absolute advantage for both the lines of production, will be cultivating trade benefits if it specializes itself only for one of the two production lines, which it can produce comparatively at lower cost of production. This lower cost of production is due to its labor efficiency for producing one certain good. Comparative advantage principle will be workable only when the extent of absolute advantage is different in both the goods in question. In other words, comparative advantage should be greater in respect of one commodity than in that of the other. It means nothing but the comparative difference in the cost. For example, if India can manufacture a model of smartphone at a cost of $50, whereas China can produce the same model at a cost of $40, thus China has the comparative advantage in producing smartphones over India. Similarly, India can produce sugar at a cost of $1 per kilogram, whereas China can produce the same of amount sugar, i.e., 1 kilogram, at $3. Thus, giving a comparative advantage to India in sugar production. Theory of comparative advantage is further elaborated with the help of following table. Examples of theory of comparative advantage. According to the above table, Spain has an absolute advantage in the production of both goods, i.e., food and cloth, over Germany. In the bottom row, one laborer of Germany can produce either 1 unit of food or 4 units of cloth. Thus the opportunity cost of 1 unit of food is 4 units of cloth for Germany. In the above row of table, one laborer of Spain can produce either 3 units of food or 6 units of cloth. The opportunity cost of food in Spain is, therefore, 6 divided by 3 equals 2 units of cloth. Since the opportunity cost of food in Spain is less than that in Germany, Spain has a comparative advantage in food and specialize in this good. In the above table, it is explained that in the new scenario total world output has been increased by Spain switching its 1 labor out of cloth into food, and Germany switching 2 workers out of food into cloth. Thus the net world output increased by 1 unit in food and 2 units in cloth. Theory of comparative advantage. In other words, if it is cheaper for a country to produce one good relative to a second, then they will have a comparative advantage and an incentive to produce more of that good which is relatively cheaper for them to produce than the other. The theory of comparative advantage is based on the following assumptions. Assumptions of theory of comparative advantage. One factor of production, i.e., labor, is considered. Labor is immobile between the two countries, but mobile within a country. Quantity theory of money, because it assumes that if a country receives more money for its goods that it pays, the price level then go up. Law of constant returns, i.e., the cost ratio between the two goods remains constant. Free trade, i.e., the trade between the two countries is free from all restrictions. End of chapter. International trade. Please subscribe to the channel, and like the video.